Welcome to the Otherweb. Our guest today is Alexander the Reader, a pioneering technologist pushing the boundaries of artificial intelligence. He is currently spearheading the development of SmythOS, the world's first operating system designed to coordinate specialized AI agents and unlock new levels of efficiency. Alexander, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alex.
All right, so it's great to have you on. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and I want to start off by asking you, what is SmythOS?
SmythOS is a tool that lets you build AI agents with no code, visual drag and drop. And you build agents by connecting any AI model, multiple ones if you want, to any API, multiple ones if you want, and any data source, multiple ones if you want, in a visual workflow, multiple ones if you like.
All right, so let's simplify this for people who aren't engineers and are listening to us. What is an AI agent? What could they possibly try to achieve with it?
Yeah. All right. So an AI agent is kind of like a digital coworker or representative. So we think of AI tools so far as calculators that are pretty advanced, but we don't think of them as having any autonomous work action. Like they're not actually like working behind the scenes, talking to colleagues to get help or to each other. This is changing. So starting next year, we're going to get a lot more familiar with this. Think of them as digital colleagues.
So essentially, it is something like ChatGPT, but it's on all the time and it has a rule-based logic on top of it, or?
So not rule-based, intelligence-based. Rule-based would be something called RPA, or robotic process automation, right? So it's fundamentally different and it's by nature. It's going to compare, compare a pet to a human, right? So very different fundamentally in how it can reason. So think the best way is just by means of example. Take your best sales representative for your company and imagine that an agent would be trained on all their conversations and how to overcome sales objections and knows how to just make a person fall in love with your brand and be very helpful. 10-star experience. It's your best salesperson. And you put that in an AI agent. Now this AI agent needs to live somewhere. It needs to be accessible somewhere. So where do consumers shop? Well, maybe the agent has an embodiment. It's deployed to your website as a chat, but maybe it also gets deployed into the ChatGPT store so people can engage with your brand over there. Maybe it gets deployed to Alexa, Siri, Meta AI, Windows Copilot. Need I go on? People are in many different places, and wherever they are, they could interact with your AI agent. Your AI agent could make phone calls, could text, could email, could update your team in, I don't know, Slack. It could be updating your ticketing system and say, hey, I talked to this and that person. HubSpot can schedule marketing campaigns, do outreach, things like that. Not on its own. This is not auto GPT. This is you saying with a visual workflow, this is what this agent is able to do. These are the APIs it has access to. This is the data it can use. It has memory. It can write to its own memory. It can collaborate, and it can be deployed to different places. The way this is transforming marketing is by creating brand agents that are everywhere accessible to consumers. The way it transforms business and internal work is by having AI colleagues that are not just tools, but actually take on work. Some do research, some do writing, some do editing, some do publishing. Human can be in that loop or not in that loop, whatever you decide how you want to model that. They can also run in the background on a server somewhere quietly, processing data all day long, something that could have required humans to do in the past at scale, and a scale that humans can't do, looking at thousands of rows of data and comparing it with human-like intelligence. something that you couldn't do with just programming logic. Can do very fun stuff too. Let's say you're in a warehouse and you need to verify inventory, and let's say you've got this drone that can fly and take a picture on the shelf if that item is still there. So your agent could dispatch a drone to go take a picture of your inventory, come back and analyze that picture with computer vision AIs, read the labels on the boxes it read, translate that again with character recognition, process it, make a decision, give you an answer. So you can. It's really up to an imagination what we can build with this. The best way to think about it is like when the web was born, it could not imagine all the websites people would build. When Microsoft Windows came out, they could not imagine what developers would do with that. When the App Store was launched, Steve Jobs could have never predicted he'd have a beer drinking app on the iPhone as number one in the store a month or so later. So we cannot imagine the agents that people are going to build with human creativity, but we do know that agents are going to expand the world's GDP 10 to 100x in the next few years.
All right. So I want to ask you a small tactical question about what you just said, which is right now, if I want to use one of the big language models, I have to send it a query. And that query might be a large task, but I have to essentially prod it, right? I am driving the conversation. If I create a chatbot and let it run somewhere, then it runs by itself and there is no human in the loop. Like what you're describing is perhaps an agent that does work and occasionally can ask me for approval for something. Is that a reasonable application of it?
Yeah, a fundamental difference where in mentally you can just draw a line and say if it crosses this line, it's an agent versus a tool, is an AI model becomes an agent when it is able to independently use different systems and tools to achieve its objective. Yep. So a language model, for example, you can talk to, and maybe it's trained to answer math questions, answer questions with text, or make an image. That's a wonderful foundation model. But can it learn on your company's data dynamically? Can it read Jira tickets? Can it send an email to your colleague? You have to give it agency. It's kind of different. Like imagine a human brain in a jar versus a human brain in a human body. A human brain in a human body can move around the world, can do things, can take action. A human brain in a jar just has like input and output signals. It becomes an agent when it has agency. So the agency requires it to be able to use tools when needed and to achieve its objective. And it also requires it to have the ability for agency, meaning that it needs to be able to run autonomously when needed, collaborate with others when needed, so that it has autonomy. You cannot have agents without agency, and that requires a form of autonomy. But we do that in a safe and responsible way with a paradigm called constrained alignment, which means that you control as a human, as a business, what those agents are able to do, what tools they're able to use, and step by step, you can audit everything about this.
Right, so this is why I'm talking about it as a tactical question, because I, as a person who runs a company, occasionally would need to outsource some work to, let's say, a low-wage worker on Upwork for the kind of task that I think an agent could potentially do. The reason that I weren't able to use regular models until now is that I have to drive them. The reason I'm afraid of completely unconstrained agents is that they don't ask for permission. They just keep doing it until I stop them. So can I program the kind of agents you are describing to ask me for approval in certain cases, to schedule one-on-ones when it needs to discuss something, essentially to do everything that an Upwork employee can?
100%. 100%. So like Upwork and Fiverr, in the future, they're gone. So not everybody will be building apps and agents and all that, right? That's just like today. Not everybody builds apps for the App Store, but billions of people consume them. So the same ways for the future with agents. a number of people who are experts in their particular field will translate their expertise into agents and maintain those. And instead of having to onboard them and so forth, there will be a marketplace of agents, and they'll be instantly available to everyone. My company is not going to be the marketplace where all that happens, but the best agents will be built with SmythOS. So if anyone has ambitions to dominate this future Upwork with a digital version of their skills, where they can make money while they're asleep, where their agent can work for 100 clients while they're having, you know, pina coladas in Cancun or something, right? This can now be done. Proto marketplaces are already starting to pop up, like the ChatGPT store. Poe has a monetization component. This is only the beginning. By this time next year, we will have, just like the Chrome marketplace for the Chrome browser, we'll have the Bard extensions marketplace. And then Apple will make its move, a little bit delayed, but they will have an App Store moment for AI as well, which will be massive. When it is announced, everybody's going to say Apple is genius for coming up with this, but they are not the first to come up with this idea. Other companies have.
Right. So that leads me to the next question, which is the OS part. Why do you need an operating system for this?
Well, you want to make a software, you're not going to code it in assembly, right? You want an operating system to handle the networking, the memory, the communication. There's a lot of orchestration that happens, low level and high level components. SmythOS orchestrates all of that. So you can just focus on the business logic of your agent, no code, drag and drop, tell it what to do with plain English language. And SmythOS handles all of that infrastructure, all the scaling, security, networking, all of that, memory, everything is handled by the operating system.
So if we compare this to mobile apps, it seems like in mobile apps, there was no demand for this drag and drop tool to create an app. Right? People would code it and it would run on whatever the mobile device's operating system is. Why do you think this market is different?
Well, there is for the app developers, there's plenty of app builders that make it easy to build apps. But what we're offering is both the operating system and the IDE, the visual IDE. The operating system provides the runtime for the agents, so to speak, right? And our operating system provides that. But we also, it's in one package, right? SmythOS lets you also build the apps visually with no code. So it has those two components, the way to build them and then the way to run them on our hardware. So the same thing, like you could compare it to like iOS, and then the IDE is whatever you choose to use on top of that. You could build it in Swift, but there's a million like no code app builders for App Store as well.
Right. I'm just curious why here they would be made by the same company as opposed to what you have in mobile, where iOS is made by Apple, right? Or Android is made by Google. The different frameworks for building apps are built independently. Often they are open source, etc. Why do you think those two need to merge in this case?
Well, like, let's be clear, like Microsoft Windows offers the operating system and the developer tools like Visual Studio. Apple builds the operating system for their operating system hardware and provides the developer tools. If people want to extend that and build extensions and supersets of that, they can do that. But that only happens, the secondary market only responds after there's a critical mass of people already using that technology. So that too can happen with Smith in the future. But if you want to bring the future near, you need to provide both the way to build the agents and the way to host and scale the agents. Both things require a lot of time. And the most overlooked thing by anyone who sets out and says, hey, I'm going to build an agent, you might go and say, oh, look, I can code. I'm going to use an open source framework and I'm going to code this together. When you're done building your agent, Then you have to start the difficult process of securing it, hosting it, scaling it, and maintaining it. You need to figure out where things break. Don't forget, we're dealing with AI. AI is fuzzy, it's non deterministic. Really hard to debug when one time it outputs one way and another time it outputs another way. How do you go about finding where in the chain things broke down? You need extremely solid debugging tools, all of which are missing in every open source project. It is I would say, an unauditable mess for production. And so we're seeking to address that problem heads on. With Smith, you do not have to worry about all of that. We take care of all of it for you so you can focus on the business logic. I'll give an example of Upwork. I built an agent in one afternoon, delivered it to my sales team. Then somebody said, I'm curious, how much would this have cost on Upwork? So I made a job description and I went to get quotes. The average quote was $50,000 and 3 to 6 months' time. That's how much time it would have taken to code this and handle all of that work. One afternoon versus $50,000 and 3+ months' time. I know what I'll pick for my business.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned the future a few times, and you already said what you think about Upwork in the future. What is your more general prediction? What does a startup look like 5 years from now? Does it have any employees besides the founder that has an idea and a logic of what he'd like to do or she would like to do? Or does it have the creative employees, but everybody who does the grunt work as agents? What does this look like?
Yeah, so to be a founder in the future, you need to be like a real generalist who knows a bit about marketing and finance and everything and business logic and know exactly the problem you're solving. None of that is different compared to today. If you do not have all the skills required to make a business work, you'll need to have a small team of people that are really good at that and share your vision and understand what you're trying to do. The difference is that you can imagine that like for every human, there will be about 10 agents to help you in your role. So your role will not be gone, but you will have about a ratio of 10 to 1 agent to human ratio. So that means that a team of like 5 people can have the equivalent of a company size today of 55 people. Instead of needing 10 developers, you can have 1 developer. Instead of needing 10 marketing specialists, you need 1 marketing specialist. And that's obviously humans, but then they will collaborate like that. For smaller startups and smaller businesses, they are not going to create their own unique Coca-Cola recipe. They're instead going to just go to agent marketplaces and just hire AI agents to just drop in and come and help them. The way that's going to work is actually pretty cool. Like, let's say you wanted to hire Gary Vaynerchuk to help you out, but you can't afford him. But now you can have Gary V agent, and his agency will maintain a series of Gary V services and agents that you can just, plug and play into your business, and boom, you have the same process that he designed it, he maintains it, he makes sure the quality is there, exactly input and output. So you put your dream team together like fantasy football and you go to work. So 10 years from now, we have a company with a handful of people on the stock market valued at $1 trillion. 5-10 years from now, you have a former freelancer from the Philippines, right, who lost this outsourcing job but learned how to make agents instead, and now runs a billion-dollar business from his living room.
Well, some will do that. Obviously, some will just have lost their existing business, right? Because they are replaceable. They don't have the skills to up level to what you describe, right? It's an interesting vision. I'm kind of curious where this goes. Will government step in and say that agents should be paid the minimum wage too, so they don't compete with humans for prices, right?
Well, look, the way to see this is imagine a world economy where you had 80 billion people instead of 8, except the extra 72 billion don't need they don't need a home. They don't need I don't know, a diamond ring or a wedding gown. They don't need pollution as such because by this time we have our data centers on the moon and we just stream everything from there. So uh, space will cool all our chips instead of having to pay all for that cooling equipment here. Starlink will mesh network this back to Earth. So you have the productivity, a GDP 10x, 100x what we have today, but you still only have to care for the needs of a similar amount of people. So that means that the Earth is wealthy enough to take care of its people, and so now it just comes down to goodwill, where we need to just have the willpower to say, when there's enough wealth to eradicate poverty, why don't we? Where there's enough resources to eradicate um, hunger and disease, why don't we? And I think this is something that we can aspire to as humanity, to use this additional wealth for common good.
Yeah, so I share the same hope for what you just described, with the caveat that for this to work, we have to translate this wealth in the world of bits into wealth in the world of atoms, because people can't use more knowledge work to eat, right? You need to somehow convert it into actually having more food, more housing, more of all of these things that people, at least that don't have them right now, would like to have.
And this too can happen. I mean, just this week, DeepMind from Google uh, published a report where they have found a way for material science to discover thousands and thousands of new chemical compositions to make new materials, breakthroughs in how to compose graphene, which can aid in the discovery of new superconductors, which can then aid into, I don't know, electric airplanes or quantum computers in our pocket the size of phones. We or flying skateboards like in Back to the Future. So, that material science will then translate to better products, less pollution, more opportunity, more efficient use of our resources. The same breakthroughs with AI will happen in longevity, health, medicine. Um, the the benefits of understanding nutrition better and interaction with humans, human bodies and our health, our farming, automation, everything, our understanding of DNA and life, everything will and is already. This is not, you don't have to be a futurist. You just have to read the news. I mean, this is already happening. So progress is happening at an astounding rate. The main important thing is that we have to have the willpower to use the benefits of that increased wealth for the benefit of people who need it. And I will just say this: why am I optimistic about this? Is because I have never met a single person on the political spectrum, left or right, religious in fanatic way or not fanatic way, who harbors this idea that they enjoy poverty and hunger and pain in other people. I hope that answered your question.
It is. And I've tried to end every single episode in this series on an optimistic note, and I have no idea how we can possibly top this one. So I think just by describing this kind of utopian universe, you've kind of put it in a point in this discussion. Yeah, you have anything more that you want to add?
I'll just say that this is in our hands. This is a decision that we need to make. A reflection you can have on this is a middle class person in a established economy, has better access to healthcare than the emperors of Rome had, have a more luxurious living arrangement with the world's best libraries at their fingertips, in their pocket, in almost every measurable way. They're better off than the pharaohs, emperors, and kings of just 100, 200, 300 years ago. With the improvement in technology around AI, we can 100% see that the same thing will be true for the future, and that future generations will have access to things we currently think of as what billionaires have access to. And if you think about it, billionaires may drive around in $1 million car, but your $50,000 car is not that much worse than their $1 million car. The wealth gap may be seeming a lot when you look at it as a number in a bank, but beyond a certain amount of money, the actual difference you have is not that much. Whether you have a 65-inch television or an 80-inch television, the difference is not that big. Where the biggest luxury that people have with much more wealth is, I would say, freedom to pursue what they really love doing, to go where they want to go, when they want to go somewhere. It's the freedom of choice. And today, most people who are not ultra rich oftentimes have to go to work that they do not enjoy just to make ends meet. I think that is something that will become a thing of the past in the future. Something we can change. Make sure that everyone has enough access to resources so they can choose to work on something they're passionate about. And that could be taking care of their kids, if that's what they want. That could be becoming an artist. If we had such a society 100 years ago, maybe World War II would have not happened, and some dictator would instead have pursue his art passion. But because they are forced instead to give up on their dreams because of the world we live in, maybe people become bitter. So when we can create that access to technology and prosperity and share those benefits with other people, we have a choice to make the world a much better place.
Thank you so much for that. I also really, really hope that we end up in that place sooner rather than later. On a slightly less optimistic note, there are some risks in the world as well. So there's kind of a race between the bad stuff happening and the good stuff happening. So I hope that all the good stuff you described happens first.
Yeah, and this is where open source is a great equalizer. But it's interesting. Now, artificial intelligence can be used to do bad, and it can be used to do good. But here's so ultimately, people with bad intentions obviously can do a lot more damage with a machine gun than with a knife, right? So same way with artificial intelligence, you could do a lot more damage than with other weapons. Artificial intelligence is more dangerous than a gun. It can do a lot more harm. But we also have two things. The number of people who want to use artificial intelligence for good will, I believe, always exceed the number of people by far who want to use it for bad. And so that makes it an uneven proposition, right? I think for every really bad, disturbed person, there's maybe 100 really, really good persons who want to go and make that better. So this is an advantage really in favor of a better future. Does not diminish the risks, but it really works in our favor. The other thing is, there's this Disney movie, Aladdin, right? I believe he steals an apple in the cartoon. He's like running through his town, and he steals an apple. Once he becomes like Prince Ali and he has all of his wishes granted by the genie, if he would still steal an apple at that point from a merchant, that we would frown upon that. But when he was hungry, maybe he stole an apple just to live. And so there's a different moral equivalency with those things. The question is, not obviously crime is bad, but a lot of crime in this world happens because people are in certain situations and they make bad decisions to go and make their situation better. Would it still make sense to go to be a robber when we live in a society that has an abundance of wealth? So would it still make sense for people who have, mental disorders to do things that relate from that if we had really good treatments available for them? Right? Would it still make sense for countries to not provide healthcare services as a common service to their population if the costs of healthcare and treatment were lowered so much because of advancement in technology that it nearly became free? When you remove those obstacles for a better society that often cause the hardship and the crime associated with it, then in general, a lot of the things we consider and worry about with bad actors is removed. Maybe instead of starting some crypto scam, they would instead just be enjoying their high quality life on things they enjoy, because that kind of greed to simply not pay off anymore. They already have what they need. I'm not saying that will solve all issues. Obviously, there will still be those, but we all know that areas with more poverty have more crime. Areas with historical trauma have more pain to heal from. So, the problem of bad actors with AI, can also be improved a lot by simply improving the life conditions of the people around us. And so this is the social contract that we have to make in making the benefits of AI accessible and distributed to benefit our population or neighbors, not hoard it up for ourselves. Because what else can we do with that money beyond a certain point? What else can you do? You need another yacht. You need another plane. Is that going to really make you happy? I spoke to someone who has a 70-inch TV in their room, and they were looking at a 100-inch TV for Black Friday. And they were talking to me about it, and it's like trying to make up their mind, should I buy this? And I said, how will the few extra inches materially improve your life quality? And they said, it won't. And I said, well, then you know what to do. Right?
I would actually argue it would probably affect their vision in a negative way, because now they're that much closer to a really wide screen.
Who knows?
But yes, I agree with you. The TV that we have in our house is 43 inches, and it's only used for the benefits of the kids, because us adults, I'd rather not have a TV. All right. This has been a fascinating conversation. Really optimistic. I did not expect this, to be honest. So thank you so much for that. That's my dose of optimism, at least for a month going forward. And I hope we can talk again in the future once you guys are the biggest AI/agent/everything operating system in town.
Thank you, Alex.
All right. Thank you so much, Alexander. This has been another episode of the Otherweb. Join us next time for more discussions on news, media, and everything in between.